What are the worst grass types to use in Pokemon Emerald? And I don't mean just the grass types you encounter in the game. I mean all of the grass type Pokemon from the first 3 generations. Let's just say you were to do a randomizer which randomizes the starter Pokemon. So which grass types would be the worst of the worst from the beginning of the journey to becoming champion? And let's just say that if a Pokemon can evolve, then it's going to start out on its first stage. That is the question I want to answer into this video. So let's just hop right into it. Coming in at number 5, and I really hate to put this Pokemon here, and it might be a little controversial, but it's going to be Exeggutor. It's really good in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but I can't say the same for Emerald. It's going to start out as an Execute, and you can evolve it through level up. That's because it's a stone-based evolution. It needs the Leaf Stone to evolve, which you can't get until after you beat Norman. Therefore, the first 5 gyms, you're stuck with Execute. And going up against Norman with a Pokemon that has a base stat total less than 400 is a little less than ideal. You're also kind of incentivized to keep it as an Execute for as long as you can, because once you evolve it, it can no longer learn any more moves through level up. I guess there's Egg Bomb, which it learns at level 31, and I guess if you really want to teach it Egg Bomb, then sure, go for it. But Execute learns one of the best status moves in the game, Sleep Powder. This will shut down the opponent by putting the target to sleep, and they can't do anything until they wake up. But Execute doesn't learn this move until level 37, which puts you around challenging the 6th or 7th gym, so you have to wait just a little longer if you want to use Sleep Powder for Exeggutor. That's around the same time you can obtain one in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but the reason why it fares so much better in those games is because how much of an advantage it has over the other gyms. It hits Koga, Giovanni, and most of the Elite Four for super effective damage, but it's the exact opposite in Emerald. It shouldn't have that much of an issue against Roxanne, but the only grass type move Execute has at this point is Leech Seed. It's not an attacking move, so it can't clear this gym as quickly as other grass types. In fact, its only attacking moves are Barrage, which I would just avoid in general because of how bad it is, and Uproar. Both are normal type moves, which Roxanne's teams resists, but once you evolve it into Exeggutor, this thing's bulk isn't half bad, and it's got an insane base 125 special attack. That makes Exeggutor the strongest grass-type special attacker in the game, and its special attack is the same as Zapdos and Moltres. I would say its greatest moment to shine against the other grass types is in its battle against Tate and Liza, because it's a psychic type, which it will resist their staff psychic type attacks, and 3 out of 4 of their Pokemon are weak to grass, so it shouldn't have trouble taking down their team. But like I said, it really just gets screwed over due to consecutively bad type matchups. Pretty much every member of the Elite Four can decimate Exeggutor. You got Glacia, who has all Ice-type Pokemon, Drake, the Dragon-type specialist, but most of his Pokemon have a Flying or Fire-type move, and even some have Dark-type moves. But these 2 members of the Elite Four are the typical challenges most Grass-type Pokemon will face. But Exeggutor also has to worry about the other 2 Elite Four members, Sydney and Phoebe. Phoebe has Ghost-type Pokemon, and Sydney has all Dark types, so not only do they hit Exeggutor for super effective damage, but they're also immune to Psychic-type attacks. And let's not forget about Team Magma and Team Aqua, who you battle many times throughout the game. Nearly every battle there is a Dark type on their team, so you have to be careful when using Exeggutor. I think Exeggutor is a good Pokemon, it just has a lot of bad type matchups in this game. It does have moments to shine like I said earlier, but with so many threats in its way, it's unable to unleash its full potential. Coming in at number 4, I'm going to give it to Tangela. This is a mono grass type, and I think it's actually pretty solid early game. It's got base 115 defense and base 100 special attack, so it's a great matchup against Brawly. Brawly relies on physical attacks, allowing Tangela to soak up damage thanks to its high defense for so early on in the game. Tangela also learns Sleep Powder and Growth before level 15. That's not half bad because Tangela can put the opponent to sleep, then set up with Growth to raise its special attack. In Generation 3, Growth simply raises the user's special attack by 1 stage, and unlike in future generations, it doesn't raise it by 2 stages if there is sunlight. Be that as it may, I'd still say this is usable because it's so early on in the game, and it's a stat boosting move. If we are just comparing how these Pokemon perform in early game, Tangela is actually pretty good for a grass-type Pokemon, and that's due to it having pretty good stats early on, which is due to it being a single-stage Pokemon in this game. You see, although Tangela is a pre-evolution Pokemon, that wasn't the case in Generation 3 since Tangrowth wasn't introduced until Generation 4. That right there helps it give it an edge in the early game, but the cracks begin to show once you get past the early game. Yeah, a lot of grass-type Pokemon are weak to Flannery, but I'd say Tangela is amongst the worst grass types to go up against her because of its incredibly low special defense. Base 40 special defense is unfathomably low for a fully evolved Pokemon, and the Pokemon only gets stronger as the game goes on, so any Pokemon with average special attack is going to do some insane amount of damage to it. I wouldn't even say Tangela is a great answer to Watson, because despite resisting electric type attacks, such low special defense means it's still going to take a moderate amount of damage. And it's not like the moves it learns through level up are going to do it any favors. And I know I complimented it for having growth and sleep powder before the first gym, but to be honest, that's pretty much where Tangela peaks. It's got to work with Absorb, which only has 20 power, and is the weakest between Absorb, Mega Drain, and Giga Drain. It learns Vine Whip at level 22, which is stronger, but it only has 35 power, so it's not like it's going to do a lot of damage. Then it learns Mega Drain, but you gotta wait until level 31. Sadly, its learn set is not that impressive. It only learns grass and normal type moves, and it's not like they're good. These are some of the most subpar grass and normal type moves in the game. There's no reason it needs to learn Tickle at level 46. As you get further into the game, it's just gonna get eclipsed by every other Pokemon, but at least it's really good against the first two gyms. For the number 3 spot, you probably expected this Pokemon to appear on this list, and it's gonna be Parasect. Now, Parasect is an incredibly bad Pokemon. Whether it's a casual playthrough or used competitively, it's just not that good, let alone being a good grass or bug type Pokemon. Luckily, Parasect has been blessed with learning Spore. Spore is the exact same as Sleep Powder. It's a status move, which puts the Pokemon to sleep. But unlike Sleep Powder, which has 75 accuracy, Spore has 100 accuracy, so it will never miss unless there's been some tinkering with accuracy or evasion. In fact, Parasect is one of the few Pokemon that has access to this move, the only other Pokemon being the Breloom line. However, if you're talking about just using them in a playthrough, then realistically, only the Parasect line can learn Spore. Yeah, Breloom can learn Spore, but it's not worth teaching it in a playthrough. That's because Breloom actually can't learn Spore through level up. It can only learn Spore as a Shroomish. Mind you, Shroomish evolves into Breloom at level 23. That's fairly early on, right around the 3rd gym. However, if you want Shroomish to learn Spore, it'll need to reach a level 54. That's literally the end of the game, so technically, only the Parasect line can make use of Spore in a playthrough. I already talked about how powerful Sleep is because it shuts down the opponent from doing anything. Now imagine it being the only Pokemon in the game that can use a move which automatically puts a Pokemon to sleep. But as powerful as Spore is, it's not enough to keep Parasect off this list. Yeah, it's got base 95 attack, which I say is decent, and sure, it's got some good coverage moves like Aerial Ace, Sludge Bomb, and Dig, but there are hardly any battles where it can make use of that and hit other Pokemon for super effective damage. Parasect is fragile, and its base speed is only 30. It's so slow that even though it has Spore, it's going to move second majority of the time. Other Pokemon have a 1 in 4 chance to miss with Sleep Powder, so while never missing with Spore is great, the downside is that your Pokemon will almost always move second, so you can make the argument that a faster Pokemon with Sleep Powder might be better. And let's not forget how bad of a type combination Bug and Grass is. Parasect has 2 4x weaknesses, one to Fire and the other being to Flying, and there's 2 gym leaders who use these types, so Parasect has an even bigger obstacle to work around compared to other grass types. Since it's a bug type, it's also weak to Roxanne, and it can't even hit Roxanne's team for super effective damage because the only attacking move it'll have at this point is Scratch, so getting past her is going to be a huge hassle. It might be able to do something against Tate and Liza, but the odds are stacked against it. I guess you could try spamming Fury Cutter, which will increase in power, but don't forget, Claydol knows Ancient Power, and Solrock has Flamethrower. The Parasect line is one of the few Pokemon lines in this game which has access to the ability Effect Spore, which has a chance to inflict sleep, paralysis, or poisoning a target if the target hits Parasect with a contact move. Yeah, it's a gamble since Parasect has to get hit, but activating that ability is pretty good. But ideally, you want to use Spore to put a Pokemon to sleep, but with Effect Spore, there's a possibility you can use Spore, but it won't work because the target activated Parasect's ability. The target will either get put to sleep, paralyzed, or poisoned. Sleep is obviously the best of the 3. Paralysis is pretty good as well, and I guess poisoning isn't that bad, but I think the other 2 are far better in most situations. Parasect is carried by Spore, and if it didn't have this move, then it definitely would be lower on this list. I think Parasect and the number 2 spot are pretty neck and neck when it comes to which of them is worse. So for number 2, I'm gonna give it to Jumpluff, which I think is only a hair worse than Parasect. Now, the Jumpluff line is a grass and flying type, the same type as Tropius, arguably the worst grass type which is obtainable through normal means in this game. But Jumpluff in Generation 3 is just Tropius but worse. Jumpluff is really fast, so it can outspeed a lot of Pokemon, but that's the only stat it has over Tropius. Sure, Tropius is slow, but Tropius has better stats overall compared to Jumpluff. Tropius stats aren't anything to brag about, but that fact alone reinforces that Jumpluff is frail, it doesn't hit hard, and the worst of it all is that its level up moveset is pretty bad. It learns the powder moves fairly early on, Leech Seed, and even Synthesis all by the first gym. However, outside of that, it's pretty rough. The only attacking move it has is Tackle, and it doesn't learn another attacking move until level 44, which is Mega Drain. Not Giga Drain, Mega Drain. It's frail and it doesn't hit hard, so there's not much Jumpluff can really do. I guess it can try to stall out the team by using Leech Seed and Sleep Powder, but even then, it's not that good of a strategy. Jumpluff is still going to be a hop hit by the time you take on Roxanne, and if you think that having Tackle is already bad enough, it's part Flying type, so it too is also weak to Roxanne's team, so it's going to get hit for super effective damage, and it doesn't even have a Grass type move. It's up there with Paris as one of the worst Grass types to combat Roxanne's team. Sure, being a Flying type means it can resist Brawly's gym, but even his Pokemon can do insane amounts of damage if they use Bulk Up one time, and it's just a shame that it only has Tackle to work with. It may be fast, but using the powder moves paired with Synthesis and Leech Seed is such a mind-boggling slow playstyle that it makes it incredibly tedious. Hoppip is going to evolve into Skiploom by the time you reach Watson, and yet again, it's another roadblock. Grass types have an easier time against him since they resist electric type attacks, but not Skiploom since it's part Flying type, therefore it takes neutral damage. After Norman and Winona, you can teach Jumpluff Giga Drain and Aerial Ace respectively, giving it access to its stab moves, but I wouldn't say Aerial Ace is going to do it many favors. There's not that many trainers who specialize in a type that are weak to flying at this point, so I guess it can hit Sydney's Shiftry and Cacturne and Juan and Wallace's Ludicolo for super effective damage. Jumpluff may be fast, but with such poor defense and attack, it's not like it's going to come in handy. The best thing that you can try to do with this thing is use it as a support Pokemon. Maybe you could try to status the opponent with it, maybe you could hit it with Leech Seed and then get out of there. But when it comes to being judged compared to other Grass-type Pokemon, Jumpluff has little to offer amongst the group. But there's still one more Pokemon I would say is even worse than Jumpluff. So coming in at number 1 as the worst Grass-type Pokemon to use in all of Emerald is going to be Sunflora. Now, Sunflora is another mono Grass-type Pokemon, and it's in the same boat as Tangela when it comes to having bad stats. However, Tangela has a decent special attack and defense, while Sunflora's only admirable stat is its base 105 special attack. Outside of that, what else is there to say? Well, we can acknowledge that it's a stone-based evolution. It's not going to evolve through normal means by leveling up, so you have to obtain a Sunstone, but there's only 2 ways to obtain a Sunstone in this game. The first method is you can obtain one from the NPC in Moss Deep City, but in order to reach Moss Deep City, you need to have beaten the first 6 gyms. Waiting until Moss Deep City is absurd because Sunkern is absurdly bad. It has a base stat total of 180 with only 30 points in every stat. You can try to use Sunkern all you want, but there's no way it's going to do anything outside of Roxanne, unless you severely overlevel it. So in order to obtain the Sunstone sooner, you need to encounter Solrock and Meteor Falls, because it has a 5% chance to hold one. Now this could take a lot of time to get, but luckily, there's a way to raise the odds of a Pokemon holding a held item, so with the correct setup, it makes it significantly easier. But the fact you still have to go out of your way to do this just to obtain Sunflora doesn't make things better considering how bad it is. Even though you evolve it, it's not like it's going to do anything insanely better than any other Pokemon can. I mean, it learns Petal Dance at level 37, which is a little stronger than Giga Drain, making it one of the strongest Grass-type moves in the game. However, Petal Dance locks the Pokemon into that move for the next 3 to 4 turns and cannot switch out. And once the Pokemon is free to select another move, the user becomes confused. Confusion is brutal in Generation 3, with the 50% chance to make a Pokemon hurt itself in confusion. With such a huge downside to the move and only having 70 power, it doesn't make it an ideal move to run, let alone on Sunflora, a frail Pokemon which cannot afford receiving any damage. I guess the only positive thing I can say about Sunflora is that it naturally learns Sunny Day at level 30 and Solar Beam at level 42. However, both of these moves are TMs, so if you really need a Pokemon to learn any of them, any Grass type can. Surprisingly, Sunflora is up there with some of the strongest Grass-type special attackers in Generation 3. But I'm thinking Game Freak thought letting it have 105 special attack, learning Sunny Day and Solar Beam naturally was too much, so they made it frail and laughably slow with only base 30 speed. Now, Sunflora has the ability Chlorophyll, which will double its speed in the sunlight, but doubling its speed is nothing when it's sitting at base 30. Even Pokemon with average speed can outspeed Sunflora even with its ability activated. On top of that, most grass types have chlorophyll as their ability, and they're all faster than Sunflora. Clearly everything was invested into its special attack, but if Sunflora just had average speed, then I think that would be enough to make it a decent grass-type Pokemon instead of the worst grass-type Pokemon in Generation 3. Base 105 special attack is pretty good, but with everything else being so bad about this Pokemon, it's going to take the #1 spot as the worst grass type to use in Pokemon Emerald. Anyways, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. If you want to see me make more videos where I cover other types, then let me know in the comments. But I'll catch you in the next one. Later.